takes 45, on average, it takes 45 days for a property close. And you and I were talking about the NFT that you did. How long did that take to close?
Just a couple of minutes.
Okay, so that gets me excited. Right? Imagine how many more transactions we could make happen.
The real estate industry is a prime example of this. Buying property is a slow and disorganized process. It is plagued by intermediaries, delayed communication, and unnecessary repetition. Fortunately, automation is taking over the world, and Propy is bringing this technology to the public via the property purchasing process.
So Propy is looking to disrupt the real estate industry. So it is looking to bring blockchain technology to the real estate market. Now, outside of cryptocurrencies, we know blockchain is set to disrupt healthcare, voting, finance, real estate, and specifically in the real estate market, you have a lot of documents, a lot of moving parts and components, titles to companies, deeds, not to companies, for properties, right? Like houses and so forth, apartments, whatever it may be. And you have a lot of information that usually needs to be dug up, and you need to find this version and whatever. So blockchain will absolutely provide a solution to all of that, meaning that all those documents can be listed on the blockchain, and it could be incorruptible. People can't create fake titles, deeds, and make adjustments to it. It will be on the blockchain, right? It'll be on the distributed ledger. So
I believe, though, that the next big thing for our industry will be automation of the transaction. It's a $100 billion opportunity. Last 15 years, you all know Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com were enabled by internet innovation. But the next 15 years will be all about automation of the transaction. So imagine you have a transaction. You invite the buyer, your customer, or the seller, and the title agent to the system. Then you upload the purchase agreement, the offer that is accepted to the system, and we generate the timeline and reminders for you automatically. Then the home buyer, your customer, shares the bank account with our system, and we initiate the bank transfer, avoiding the horrible wire fraud risk. And then the title company uploads a report so that your customers can execute. And in the end, in the culmination of the transaction, your home buyer gets a recorded deed together with QR code that is linked to all the steps above.
Step 1. Property choice. The process begins with a buyer finding a property on the listing platform. Just like Zillow, Redfin, and other real estate listings, Propy aggregates data from MLS. All you have to do is go on Propy, select your desired property, choose an agent, and make an offer. Step 2. Purchase and sale agreement generation. Propy automatically generates the purchase and sale agreement, and it performs ownership verification through a third party. The offer gets signed electronically by all participants. Once all parties provide their signatures, the purchase agreement gets encrypted and it is recorded on the blockchain. Step 3. Additional documents. The title agent uploads the title report so that both the buyer and the seller can sign it online. In addition to the title report, the seller's agent uploads disclosure documents so that the participants can sign them. The title agent uploads separate estimates, called the settlement statements, to the buyer and the seller. After both parties sign them, the title agent provides an escrow bank account, thus avoiding the risk of email and wire fraud. Step 4. Payment. The buyer has fiat and cryptocurrency options for payment. After the payment form is automatically generated and the amount is processed, Propy marks the payment as received on the smart contract. Step 5. Title deed. At this final step, the buyer receives the officially recorded title deed with a blockchain address on it. The records are kept at the municipality and on the blockchain. Because the deed is recorded on the blockchain, the buyer has an unhackable proof of ownership. Since everything is recorded on the blockchain, there's no opportunity for fraudulent behavior in the transaction process. Additionally, with Propy's automation features, sellers and buyers save money on fees.
Nina, let's chat about applications of blockchain, NFTs, and smart contracts in real estate. What amazes you the most?
I really like the idea of the smart contracts and how it could simplify the real estate closing transaction. Right now, you have a very lengthy, inefficient process, right? The 12 steps of real estate closings, right? With escrow accounts, title searches, you hire an attorney depending on the state, you negotiate the closing costs. I mean, there's so many parties that are involved, right? From an agent, sales agent, escrow agent, buyer, seller, lawyer, title company. I mean, it's just endless, right?
Yeah.
And think about, you have, at least 9 to 15 players trying to close this one property, right? And it's, different time zones, different work ethic, different, different abilities, right?
And it's
what
9 to 12 participants
12,
that are
it's-
visible to the consumer, but actually there are some
Right.
researchers that there are about 20 people touching one transaction.
So imagine
80.
with a smart contract and with a blockchain, you can minimize that, right? And make it a much more efficient and seamless process. And what's interesting, it takes 45 on average, it takes 45 days for a property close. And you and I were talking about the NFT that you did. How long did that take to close?
Just a couple of minutes.
Okay, so that gets me excited. Imagine how many more transactions we could make happen. I mean, on average, in 2019, there was 5.5 million homes that were bought and sold. Right, in 2021, or in 2019, 5.5. 2020 was about 6 million, just because of what happened with COVID. And, it's just not a normal year, right? So on average, it's 5.5 million. But imagine if you could close a transaction, like you said, within a week.
Yeah.
Imagine how that would change the volume of transactions being done. And imagine if you could do transactions not only within a state, but globally with blockchains and smart contracts. That excites me. I think that right now, the way that real estate is, it's a very localized system, right? With many players, which delays the process, right?
Mhm.
Whereas the potential for blockchain and smart contracts and tokenizations of real estate assets could be globalized, right? And could be, the consumer could have much more input and power where they invest. And they're not stuck with just, the same thing that's been happening in the real estate industry for the last 150 years.